I remember the shock of when he first did it. And there is this horror and terror that washes over you and never goes away.
I've known people that have attempted or committed suicide.
It's a public health crisis and not a moral failing.
And I think it's not something that we should just be putting on the back burner.
It needs to be talked about, to be addressed.
There is no shame in seeking help. There is hope, there is healing.
Hope over suicide, that is our focus as we devote the next half hour to an issue that's frankly tough to talk about. But suicide is touching our community in ways that are too important to ignore. And in case you're concerned that we're making the problem worse by talking about it, here's Dr. Ben Hunter, a psychiatrist and medical director of outpatient services at Skyland Trail.
I think there was for a long time the sort of perception that if we talk about it, we give people ideas that then they will act on, and we know that to be false at this point. And again, I think the more comfortable people feel talking about suicide, the more likely they are to reach out to someone at the moment they need help the most.
Throughout the show, you'll see the number for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline right on your screen. It's 1-800-273-TALK. It is free, confidential, and available 24/7. We also invite you to join us on the 11 Alive Facebook page, where we have a panel of experts taking your questions from now until 6:30. Our panel includes Hannah Piercy, who's become a source of hope for the hurting.
I got my boo-boo.
It's okay.
Hannah Piercy is raising her 2 children as a single mother, but she doesn't feel alone.
I haven't let go of Caleb, but I would just want them to know their dad is still here. He loved them so much, so much.
Hannah's husband Caleb died by suicide when she was pregnant with their son Wally, and their daughter Aslan was only 1.5.
It did not make sense until after it happened, and then it's like all the puzzle pieces just fell into line, and I'm like, oh my God.
Hannah and Caleb met through an online dating site and fell in love fast. He put himself through Georgia Tech to become the first in his family to graduate from college.
And then he got his dream job as an engineer for Harley Davidson. He loved motorcycles, he played guitar, he sang. We dove head first into starting a family.
Say dada. Dada.
But Hannah says she started to see a change in Caleb that scared them both.
Because he had bipolar disorder, and we didn't know. He would get this look in his eyes when this happened. His eyes would go so dark and he wouldn't look like himself. He did not want to be sick. He was scared of being sick. He was very scared of what that would mean.
Caleb eventually agreed to start therapy. He went to 2 sessions before using a gun to take his own life.
If I remember the shock of when he first did it, I wasn't present mentally. It was just this fog, this really thick, heavy fog, and depression, and feeling like, how do I function? And I got to a point, especially when Wally was born, where I said, I need my life back, and I wanted to talk about it.
Hannah did more than talk about it. She created a Facebook group called Stigmatized to document her journey as a suicide survivor and connect with others impacted by suicide.
Literally every person I talk to has some sort of story to tell. Yeah. Maybe they haven't lost somebody, but they know somebody that struggled. They themselves have struggled.
In just 2 months, she says 24 suicides have been prevented through the outreach of the stigmatized community.
We are not mental health professionals, and I have to stress that we are just people that care.
We're here to help.
She even used Facebook Live to show how the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline works.
We can call for our friends and family as well, correct, if we're worried about them?
Yes.
I did the very best I could by my husband with what I knew then. If we were to start educating people more, letting them know what some of these warning signs and red flags look like, I believe that we could help prevent a lot more suicides. There is no shame in seeking help.
The CDC reports that most, but not all, people who die by suicide exhibit warning signs. They include feeling hopeless, threatening to hurt oneself, or talking about wanting to die, increasing alcohol or drug use, displaying extreme mood swings. The more of these signs a person shows, the greater the risk. Mental illness is thought to play a role in 90% of suicides, but a proper diagnosis can be a lifesaver. For 28-year-old Kyle Boehm, it started with a cry for help and a family ready to listen.
Kyle Boehm is tired of the silence when it comes to suicide.
It does make a lot of people uncomfortable to talk about suicide because it is stigmatized. It's something when a loved one commits suicide, it becomes sort of a family secret.
But Kyle's family is different. They want to talk about it. In fact, his dad serves as chairman of the Georgia chapter of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
It's something that affects all of us. It's not just them. It's us. It's our family. It's our sons and daughters. It's our mothers and fathers.
The Boehms have learned through experience that talking about suicide can be a lifesaver.
Knowing that I wasn't alone feeling this really served as the foundation for seeking help.
Kyle was a sophomore engineering major at Vanderbilt University when he began to struggle with anxiety. By his junior year, he was having delusions and hallucinations. He even considered suicide.
I couldn't really deal with going to class and I couldn't focus on my work. So that was kind of my external indicator that it's like I either had to just like quit, just in general, just give up, or I needed to reach out to somebody.
He did reach out by sending an email to his mom. His dad still has a copy of the email he sent Kyle in return. He wrote, "First and foremost, we love you very much and are so proud to have you as our son. Second, thanks for reaching out and speaking directly about a difficult issue. Third, we're sorry that you're having a very difficult experience, and we will do everything we can and that you will allow to move to a much better experience." He ended the email with this: "You are so cherished."
Looking back, that's probably one of the better things that we did, which was not to recoil, not to to be concerned, but not to sort of roll that concern back on and saying you shouldn't feel this or you shouldn't do that. Or
the productive thing was just listening to what I had to say, no judgment, and just being there.
Kyle took medical leave from Vanderbilt and was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He began taking medication and spent 4 months in an outpatient program at Skyland Trail, a nonprofit mental health treatment center. He later went back to school and graduated from Mercer University.
I'm doing very well. By the standard metrics, I have a really good job. I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of people who care about me very deeply.
So many people may experience the pain and the hurt and the consideration of suicide, but the vast majority of people who do survive and then thrive.
More than 44,000 Americans die by suicide each year, and more than 1.3 million attempt suicide. These are some of the faces of survivors who are part of a project called Live Through This.
Live Through This is a series of portraits and true stories of suicide attempt survivors across the United States. I want them to be more open to talking about it, because one thing we know is that asking about suicide saves lives.
Suicide is complicated. There are almost always multiple causes and not a single event like a job loss, divorce, or bad grades that leads someone to consider suicide. Twice in the last month, traffic in Atlanta has been stopped by someone threatening to jump from an overpass. In both cases, the women were saved by Atlanta police officers trained to make a difference. Officer Lisa McGaw was one of them.
I made a conscious decision to go over the ledge. She was apprehensive at first, but after a while of speaking with her, I was able to get close enough to her and attempted to build a rapport. And then I resorted to my CIT training, which stands for Crisis Intervention training that the City of Atlanta provides to us. The training more or less teaches you to listen and be patient. She was feeling hungry, and she made a request for some food. The food came, and when the food came, it made her feel a little bit, you know, a little bit, put her guard down just a little bit, and she was like, well, come on, let's get up. When I asked her for a hug, it was not just for her, it was for me too.
We are streaming this special newscast on the 11 Alive Facebook page with a panel ready to answer your questions. Through their stories, you've met Hannah Piercy, Roland Boehm, and Dr. Ben Hunter, who will stay with us through 6:30 to keep the conversation going.
Coming up, we'll look at what schools are doing to focus on hope over suicide.
People that are walking by us every single day are going through so much that we don't know about.
Why students play a critical role in prevention.